So good afternoon, everybody. My name's Carol Sinclair. I'm an Associate Director in Public Health Scotland, and I've been working closely with CivTech in Scotland, a GovTech set up for a number of years as well. So I'm delighted to be here this afternoon. This is your afternoon, not mine. And in fact, it might not even be an afternoon because we're actually going to be sharing this far and wide. So just as I've done, you shouldn't do. Please don't make anything time sensitive. Welcome. There are a number of questions I might pose to you between presentations, depending on time's going. Please try and stick within your times. And I would. Okay. Let me move on to the ultraviolet radiation respiratory masks project. Our colleagues in Lithuania are going to be sharing that with us, and I would like you to share your slides, please.
Yep. Good. Do you see them?
Thank you. Off you go.
Yeah, okay, so it's good to start the whole session. I'm happy to do that. So my name is, I'm the CEO of UVIRESO, the Ultraviolet Respiratory Solutions. And you might already ask, who are we? And so we, first of all, are a team of experts in ultraviolet safety solutions who are driven by desire to solve viral bacterial safety issues globally. We started from COVID-19, but who knows what else is coming, and also there are many other safety issues to tackle. So we're going to be aiming at that as well. And also, at the same time, we are a corporate enterprise which seeks to provide maximum efficiency antiviral bacterial cleaning solutions across the globe by using the immense power of UV radiation, which is known to be able to destroy almost 100% of viruses and bacteria. So this is one of the pictures taken already after the lockdown when we managed to meet. So looking at our timeline, we began as soon as Lithuania enacted quarantine. During the Reactec Crisis Hackathon, we assembled a team of engineers and social science experts, and we were one of the finalists, one of the winners of Reactec Prizes, with an idea to develop a mask that would filter the exhaled air so that no virus particles would leave an infected or potentially infected person's body. So we also afterwards applied for financing from MITA called Innostartas, and by May the 13th, we managed to receive that funding and immediately started working on our prototype. We've already developed the lamp phase, and now we are finalizing the mask part of the prototype. And following on, we'll have to do a lot of testings. But in essence, the work is progressing and we are on our track. So you may ask, how does our technology work? So it's quite simple. The ultraviolet radiation is of the length of 275 nanometers, is known to destroy up to 99.99% of virus particles. And we are going to be employing this ultraviolet technique on, first of all, the exhaled air, but we are thinking of doing that for the inhaled air as well, but that will depend on the testing and also what the testing will show about the negative effects of ultraviolet radiation, which is first of all the skin damage, which we all know about, and also the potential ozone emissions, which happen at lower lengths of UV light radiation. So what happens after the mask? We have been doing some planning, and of course we're not going to be staying just with the mask. So we have three big types of areas that we are going to be looking into penetrating. So it's surface cleaning, water cleaning, and air cleaning. These are all potential business areas that we might try to enter. For definitely, we are going to enter the air cleaning sector with our masks, but also one of the newest projects there, we are going to be aiming at are going to be transport tents. So what are the next steps for our business? So first of all, it's going to be a fully operational ultraviolet mask development. So now we have to finalize the mask that I've told you about and move to testing phase. At the same time, we will be testing and assembling other kinds of ultraviolet cleaning systems and offering them to the Baltic market, which we feel is left out from these kinds of systems right now. And also we are finalizing cooperation with Visoro Technologijų Parkas for further research and development projects. Immediately, we are going to be trying to attract venture capital in order to scale up our operations and sales. And looking into more long-term perspective, we will have to do a lot of certification work before we can introduce the mask to the market. And in the very long term, it's more of a vision, is that we want to become a global production or assembly company of ultraviolet safety solutions. So these are some of our main partners that we already have since the beginning of our startup. We're happy with all of them, and hopefully this list will just expand. So the last message I would like to convey is that we are actually looking for medical tech and medical device certification specialists to join us. So if you are one of those, let us know. Otherwise, let's get in touch and see what we can do together. Thank you.
Thank you. That was extremely interesting and a fascinating innovation to bring to partners and the market. I would like just to ask what interest you've had already from the private or public sector in your product, and at what point that interest occurred.
Yeah, so from private side, we had dealings with Intersurgical, one of the main companies producing masks right now. So we are in close touch with them. And from the public side, I maybe haven't mentioned that this funding that we received from MITA is actually from Lithuanian government. So it's a governmental program, and I think it's related to European Union. So in fact, we are on our good track on that side as well. But in the timeline that I showed you, there is a point that we are going to be looking into further European and Lithuanian funding opportunities.
Excellent. It's good to hear real interest and progress, and I wish you well. And thank you for your time. And I would like to now invite Polish colleagues to share their presentation on ProteGO Safe.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Anthony Reiter. I am the Deputy Director of Reactec Polska, which is the cross-ministerial task force in the Prime Minister's Office of Poland. We work on basically everything related to digital policy, strategic digital initiatives, innovation, basically everything which sort of has this vibe of something new being done in government. We try to be interested around this. And one of the projects that we have taken special care of throughout the pandemic is the contact tracing, the national contact tracing app, ProteGO Safe, which is splendid. So technology works. So yeah, let's get back to normal with the apps. So of course, obviously infections and pandemics is something which has accompanied us for centuries. They've caused untold losses in both lives and property, and has captivated the minds, scientific minds of countless generations. And this is the first time really when we can take concrete actions and actually sort of combat them in a different way than we used to before. Basically for centuries, we used to put leeches or lead blood or some employ some other mechanisms and quarantine people, which we're still doing to this point in time. But this is probably the first global pandemic when we can actually do something differently, when we can put technology to work. And this is what we try to do with the contact tracing app. For those of you who are unfamiliar with the concept, basically think of this as an electronic diary. When you walk around a city or the place where you live, you meet several people. Usually, our estimates say that about dozens each day. Most of them you don't know. So whenever it turns out that you indeed are infected, you're confirmed to be a COVID-19 positive, you can probably recall about 5 names of people you've met, but you won't be able to recall people who are just as susceptible to infection, but whom you just do not know. So what the app does is it creates an anonymous mechanism for sharing the information about the encounter between 2 phones, not 2 people. We have no idea of who the person is. All we know as the government is how many times the app has been downloaded. I'll talk about privacy at length at a later point. So the point being, you are able to, whenever it turns out that indeed you are COVID-19 positive, you're able to inform people around you that they were very likely exposed to a COVID-19 positive person, which probably means they should take care of their health, get themselves tested, and make sure that they're not continuing the infection chain. Those apps have been hugely popular across Europe. Poland was one of the first countries in the world to launch one, which of course wasn't exactly stressless, but we obviously do not regret anything. And the idea, since then, obviously several countries have implemented their own versions of the app. We're trying to keep them compatible, but the general principle is pretty much the same. Ranging from country to country, there are some differences, but they're usually minuscule. Germany has their own, Italy, the UK has also announced that they will be basing their app on sort of a similar model to the one we're going forward with. So there's a very strong community amongst European nations to utilize this technology for the benefit of humanity. We're also working with the European Commission to make sure that these apps are interoperable, which means that if I meet a Lithuanian person with a Lithuanian app, then I will get the warning, and the other person will also get the warning if I turn out to be the one who's ill. So there's generally sort of this is sort of a pan-European project, which we're one of the first countries to sort of go down that route, but we're very happy to see that so many others are doing the same. One thing I need to really stress about such projects, this is probably, quite certainly actually, the largest open source project the Polish government has ever launched in history. Sort of from start to end, we really cared about transparency, and I think this has sort of yielded its benefits. 5 main things to think about: obviously, privacy, sort of everything that touches the sensitive data points will always come under public scrutiny. We have made sure that we, as the government, know literally nothing about who downloaded the app, who met whom. Who obviously who did what with the information they gained from the app. We have tried to entirely separate ourselves from this data for the very purpose of making sure that they there's no sort of suspicion of abuse on this front. We, at the same point, obviously, security and making sure that all those hardware and software points are safe, so that we can safely recommend to the general public, which is especially important because this is the general aim of those applications, and which obviously remains the goal for most of the continent, is to have about half of the adult population download the app, which means this will be an extremely sort of popular and extremely ubiquitous solution, which of course sort of places the bar very high in terms of security. Obviously, consensuality I've heard voices of some individuals who would say that, yeah, I mean, this is really mandatory, right? I mean, I should be forced to tell everyone that, I mean, inform them confidentially of all that are being infected, but we decided not to go down this road. The app is entirely voluntary. People can download this, people can not download this. We want to persuade, not force. And I think this this does and will yield dividends in the future. And finally, the last thing I really want to emphasize is that the effectiveness of the app is dependent on the trust people have in this technology. And we really sort of try to step up on this mark. We really try to build a fully transparent project from start to finish to sort of show everyone what we're doing, what we want to do, what we're planning, what we do not want to do, and what we promise we will not do. To set up verification mechanisms, to really emphasize all those points of dialogue with the community. And I think sort of the biggest lesson from this experience, for us at least, and hopefully for others who might think of going down a similar route, is that those technologies, I think it does matter how you conduct software projects. It does matter how open you choose to be with what you're doing. It does matter who you choose to be your partner of implementation. It also does matter very much sort of how informed do you keep the public with the purpose, the limitations, plans, and goals. And I think sort of.
So I'm just going to stop you there, if I may, because actually you very nicely answered the question I was going to ask you about lessons learned. So you've overrun a little bit, so I won't ask any further questions because, as I say, that was my question. Lessons learned is a key element of innovation. So thank you so much. I very much enjoyed your presentation. And interestingly, I'm involved in similar work in Scotland if you want to chat.
Obviously, I'll be glad to.
Thank you. Can I invite, just to check, are our Welsh colleagues on the call yet?
She is, yes, finally. Sorry about that. Okay, so my name's Linda Jones, and I'm the SBRI Centre Manager based in the lovely North Wales. And I'm going to talk to you very quickly today about an ambulance project that we undertook during COVID-19. But before I tell you about it, I just want to thought it might be a little bit helpful to tell you about what SBRI is and our role as the SBRI Centre. So SBRI stands for the Small Business Research Initiative, and it's a government scheme which helps us as public sector bodies use pre-commercial procurement. So it helps us to be able to really stimulate innovation. It's a government scheme, and it allows us to work with businesses to undertake R&D. So where there's no commercially available solution available on the market for us to buy, but what it also enables us to do is to be able to build something potentially just from an idea. So we get something at the end that's really fit for purpose, which is great for us. So the SBRI Centre is focused solely on health. So I work for a health board, Betsy Cadwallader University Health Board in North Wales. So what we do is we go into the health sector and talk to them about where their problems lie and their unmet needs. And then once we've done that, we'll work with them to get funding from Welsh Government and other organisations to help them do the SBRI process. So we can either project manage that for them, we can actually support and mentor them to do project manage their own SBRI. We also do training and we help businesses and public sector bodies do bid writing support as well. But this is what I'm here to talk to you about. So what we did is when COVID-19 hit, we were thinking about how we could help our colleagues in health during the pandemic. And what the ambulance service told us was that it can take them anything from 45 minutes to 2 hours to clean an ambulance when somebody that potentially had COVID or had COVID was in the back of there. It's not just the cleaning time, but it's the time it also took them to go to specialist cleaning stations. So we had a chat with them and decided, yeah, this is the way we wanted to go. So we did a real cross-sector collaboration. It was a collaboration between us from the SBRI Centre, colleagues from across Welsh Government, the Defence and Security Accelerator, which is part of the Ministry of Defence, and obviously WAST, which is the Welsh Ambulance. So we put a call out to industry, and it went out just for a week. And in that week, we had a really great response. We had 219 applications that were received. And of those, then in a couple of days, we reviewed 164, which, to be honest, in a couple of days was no mean feat. It was sort of everybody getting together to review them. And of those, then we funded 12 via health. We then tested 11 of those with a specialist team. It's called the Defence Science and Technology Laboratories, which is part of the Ministry of Defence. And what they did for us in terms of research and development, checked that the decontaminants used were effective enough to kill the virus, but also effective enough that it cleaned in all the nooks and the crannies to make sure that the ambulance was of a really clean standard. We did all that in 5 weeks, which was absolutely brilliant. It was the first of its kind in the UK. This process usually takes us up to a year and a half. So it really was sort of weekend workings, but it was really worth the effort. And then of those, all those technologies then 2 have been taken forward for further evaluation. And John from Green Tech Global's on the call, so he's going to talk to you very quickly about their solution and the benefits. But very quickly, there was some really key benefits to this challenge. We managed to reduce the time it takes to clean an ambulance by 86%, which is a huge undertaking, but also the cost of cleaning an ambulance by 82%. And we looked at some statistics, and at the height of the epidemic or the pandemic, 331.5 hours were spent cleaning ambulances. But if we'd have had these solutions in place over that month period, it would have reduced that time to 46 hours, which is massive. And what we've also found is, because these are technologies rather than humans cleaning the ambulances, we can get a really gold standard of cleaning that we're confident that everywhere's cleaned, and it's to a really high standard. So if it's okay, just this last slide, I'd like to pass over to John from Green Tech Global. John, are you there to talk through this for them?
I am, Linda.
Can you hear 1 minute, John, I'm afraid, so you're going to have to be quick.
Okay. Right, so firstly, SBRI enabled companies like us with interesting technologies to reach out to subject matter experts to give the technology the credibility that it needed for something like the ambulance service. So we have a portable fogging system that basically a nozzle is located within the ambulance. The system's fully automated from outside, and within a 12-minute period of fogging and then dwell time is able to sanitize every surface within the ambulance. And this was proven by the indicators they used located in 22 different places within the ambulance. And the key thing is that the ambulance can be returned to service so quickly because we used stabilized electrolyzed water, which doesn't leave any kind of nasty residue. It's safe to return to the atmosphere, and is safe for the ambulance staff to open the doors of the ambulance, the fog disperses, and they are able to enter back into the ambulance. And it's a really, really quick, effective method of doing it. And the benefit of going through SBRI and the data that was gathered, it's enabled us to reach out to many, many other sectors that all suffer from the same problem. So whilst it was a huge benefit from the ambulance service, it also enabled us to give clarity and credibility to carrying out a similar service in coaches, in trains, hotel rooms, dentists, and any place that has got a turnover of people and a potential risk of COVID-19.
Thank you, John. The first thing that occurs to me as you're speaking is that you're pivoting whilst doing a live project. You're already thinking ahead to where are your other markets. Is that part of a growth strategy for your company, that you do that pivoting at pace?
Yes.
That's a good answer. Yes.
Yeah, the key. Well, the key to it is data. You know, one of the biggest problems we've seen in the whole hygiene market, not just in the UK but in Europe, is people with false claims about efficacy, credibility, EN accreditations, and so for us, you know, this project has really fast-tracked the ability to be able to deliver that proof of efficacy and that credibility.
I can absolutely understand that, because data is at the heart of everything. That is my world. Thank you, Linda and John. I'm going to invite you to stop sharing your screen now. And I would like to invite our Polish colleagues again. CovidGenomics, if you'd like to start sharing your screen, please. If Linda stops sharing.
Some people may think that the pandemic is almost over. The borders are being opened, restrictions are being removed. But the most important problem that is still keeping us from living normally remains is the problem of SARS-CoV-2 mutations. As we all know, viruses mutate. Because of this, every year there is a completely different flu vaccine. We, as CovidGenomics, decided to tackle this problem comprehensively. Let's start with the topic of genomic tests for COVID-19, that is RT-PCR tests. To effectively assess the current stage of the pandemic, we should have accurate data about the number of infected and recovered people. So, how does the genomic test work? The test searches for a specific genomic sequence in a genetic sample collected from a patient. If the virus mutates anywhere in this sequence, the disease may not be recognized. Additionally, we should develop these sequences taking into account other coronavirus sequences so that false positives do not occur. To overcome these problems, we developed an online tool to verify the efficacy of RT-PCR tests. Our machine learning model has over 90% accuracy and sensitivity. That is much better than any described in literature. Best model available currently has just 70% accuracy and sensitivity, and it doesn't even analyze big data. In our online tool, any laboratory can input the sequences that they are looking for in a test, so that they could analyze how these regions have mutated in the SARS-CoV-2 virus. Additionally, we check if the same sequences exist in genomes of other viruses to estimate the specificity of the test. Here you can see an example outcome of our tool. Because of the lockdown, viruses are mutating differently in various parts of the world, so one test will not be ideal everywhere. On the photo, you can see an analysis of one of the tests recommended by WHO, which is efficient in most of the countries, but in Portugal, the sensitivity is less than 40%. That's why it is crucial to verify the tests so that they suit the exact region and country, and not just use the most popular ones. We also collage these sequences with the genomic data from other coronaviruses, so the test doesn't come out as a false positive. This is especially important in order to unfreeze parts of the economy and not waste time and resources put into further diagnostics of curing patients that are in fact healthy. After developing our RT-PCR COVID analyzer, we plan to generalize the model in order to apply it to other viruses mutating rapidly, mainly HIV, after the pandemic. In the near future, we will develop several other products to help laboratories all around the world in constructing vaccines and other COVID-19 therapies. Our next model, which we already started to develop, will predict the evolutionary trajectory of the virus mutation. Based on machine learning and stochastic modeling, it will have much greater accuracy than the currently used models. This approach is essential so the new treatments and vaccines for disease do not target regions in the genome which are beginning to be more and more mutated. We'll also build a model to calculate optimal peptides for mRNA vaccines. The choice which peptide to use greatly influences the effectiveness of the vaccine. With such a model based on big data, we'll be able to boost up the production of any vaccine savings costs in parallel. Our third system that we are planning right now will be used to answer the question, if I was infected by SARS-CoV-2 and recovered, what is the probability that I will be resistant to the mutated strain next year? It can be used to model vaccines and therapies in a better way, but also to make much more accurate epidemiological models and predict the possibility of a second pandemic wave. Our business model is based on SaaS solution for B2B clients using subscription services. At the beginning, we'll use 90-day trial in order to build recognition in the industry and to convince laboratories and pharmaceutical companies of our credibility. We have already won several hackathons and competitions, main ones being European UVIRESO virus, Hack the Crisis, and Researchathon organized by the University of Stanford. Moreover, we managed to establish numerous collaborations with, for example, Data Institute Center, which is supplying us with servers to compute on, individual investors, and GovTech Poland. Additionally, with universities in Poland and abroad. Project was created by students from Poland. That's me, Piotr Grzegorczyk, studying mathematics, Grzegorz Prajbisz, studying medicine and mathematics, and Piotr Styczyński, studying computer science. In our team, we also have several interdisciplinary mentors talented in multiple disciplines, ranging from virology to machine learning and mathematics. Our investors help us with business modeling and financial projections. We currently mainly need contacts to laboratories and pharmaceutical companies in order to develop our products with them and better understand their needs. Thank you for attention, and I will be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you so much. It was a fascinating presentation. So much to understand about genomics and the power of genomics. You're a very young company. What are your aspirations for the next year to embed your company into a clear market?
So we already incorporated our company, and next year I think we'll have polished our current RT-PCR analyzing model to the final stage, because currently it's in the beta stage. Also, I think we'll be somewhere in the middle of modeling our mutation prediction model. And we already are working with several laboratories in Poland and few abroad. And we are also talking with startups and also bigger pharma companies in order to help them develop vaccines and treatments. So I hope that next year we'll be able to already save some lives by helping other laboratories and companies.
I share your ambition. Thank you for your time today.
Thank you very much.
I wish you well, as do I to everybody presenting today. So thank you. I'm going to invite colleagues from Estonia now to share their screen.
Hi. Can you hear me well? All right. Hi, my name is Sten from Team MASC, a startup from Estonia. So once the crisis hit, we started looking for the ways how we can help the Estonian government managing the crisis. And we soon learned that the government has no data about the stock and demand of personal protective equipment. Without this data, it was difficult for them to make new procurements as well as distribute the new procurements among the public sector institutions. So we created a system, MASC, a system to collect the demand and stock data on PPE along with the distribution tool. It was implemented on the government level in April 2020 and is today used by over 300 institutions in Estonia, including all the hospitals. So these public sector institutions are on a weekly basis reporting their stock and demand data on PPE to the crisis response team, who's then making decisions on the new procurements. Basically, how the system works is that the system collects data from the institutions, analyzes it, and visualizes it in a way that makes it efficient for the decision makers to make decisions on the new procurements, as well as distributions over the new procurements, or redistributing the stock between the institutions. These are some views of the form that the institutions are filling in on a weekly basis about the stock, demand, and incoming shipments. And these are the views for the crisis response team to see what is the situation with PP within the country and where they need to action and how soon and what would be the most crucial actions. So once we had created this platform, we realized that even greater problem is related to sourcing of PP, sourcing quality PP, as the demand has increased heavily for PP, but the market is full of new suppliers that are producing low quality or even fake products. So, and moreover, even though there are suppliers, the quality suppliers on the market, it's very difficult to verify if these suppliers are selling what they are telling about the product. So the way how we're solving this problem is creating a platform to connect PP buyers with verified suppliers. In collaboration with the Estonian National Health Board and technical authorities, we created a verification tool to verify the documentation and the products of PP. And we are pooling the demand to make sure that the smaller institutions would be able to procure as well. As the public sector institutions are supported by the government to source PP, our platform focus today is on businesses and private enterprises, especially on those that need to use PP to operate on a daily basis, such as private clinics, private hospitals, manufacturing companies, and cleaning companies. So this is how the platform looks like. You fill in what you require, the quantities, you get the listing of the verified suppliers, and you just make the purchase easy as that. And briefly about the team as well. The team is very diversified, different backgrounds. Before the crisis started, we worked in very different industries. I was based in Beijing working on governmental affairs. Kurt, that is taking care of the product, is based in Washington, DC with pharma. Oliver, who's taking care of the software, has been working in London at TransferWise for the past 5 years, and Maria is taking care of the marketing. And yes, the next steps were just expanding globally to help more and more PP buyers to get the verified products. Thank you.
Thank you very much. PP was and is a crucial part of the response to COVID. What do you consider the most important element of your solution that is offering the value add that was missing? What was the one thing? Was it data collection, data visualization, and what is your USP, your unique proposition in that space?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of for the government, for the crisis response teams, in order to make decisions on procurements and distribution, they need to have the data. Otherwise, they don't know when they have to order, what they have to order, and once they receive the new order, they don't know how to distribute it. Or even sometimes they don't have to make new procurements, they can redistribute between the institutions. Without the data, it's impossible. And because previously the governments didn't have a need for such system, these sort of systems were not implemented. Or the ERP systems in public sector institutions and hospitals did not communicate with each other. So suddenly they need to have had this data and there were no systems. So yeah, we realized it's a problem, fixed it, and it has been in use since April until hope it's going to be helpful in future as well.
Thank you very much. Another fine example of data at the heart of innovation. Thank you for your time today. Wish you well. And I'm now going to invite Scottish colleagues to talk about a wrist-worn device to warn about proximity, another proximity solution.
I hope you're seeing my screen okay. My name is Jackie McLaughlin with a company named Reacttech. We're an Edinburgh-based company in Scotland. So I'm here today to talk to you about how we essentially repurposed or enhanced an existing product in order to help with social distancing management and contact tracing in the wake of the pandemic. A little bit of history on the company. We're not a startup. We actually originated in 2001 from Edinburgh University and became specialists in health sensor monitoring, particularly in the area of people being exposed to vibration while at work. And it's that product that we've now turned into the social distancing application. So at this point in time, our technology is quite widespread. So that ability to enhance the existing offering meant that we actually could rapidly facilitate a lot of available devices in the marketplace. So essentially there are two critical elements to our system. There's a device which we call a hardware. It's worn on the wrist. It's the size of a smartwatch. And it's basically that device detecting distances between other devices that's collecting the key data. But equally as important to that device is we have a hosted analytics platform which essentially gets that data from that device in a fairly automated manner, which means that the employers very readily can access quickly and efficiently information on who's been in close proximity to each other and how long those close proximity events are happening for. Our system is very much aimed at the workplace environment. So individuals don't own a device, they're electronically allocated the device when they come into work. So it's about trying to ensure that there's a controlled environment within the workplace that allows an employer to know with certainty that they can track their employees during the working day. There is a third piece to the system, which is a device which we call Reiter. And really that's, if you like, almost a bells and whistles addition to the whole system, because what it allows you to do is to gather the data from the device within the working day rather than waiting to next day. Without the Reiter device, it's the hardware being returned to its charging station, which gets the data to the hosted analytics. So as I say, the key piece of the technology in terms of detection is the wrist-worn device. It detects based on signal strength, how close two individuals may be to each other. The fact that the device is worn on the wrist, we think has a lot of advantages because devices relying on radio technologies, those signals can be blocked by the body. You can also have situations where you get false readings from radio signals because they actually pass through things that you don't expect them to. But the wrist-worn aspect of this device really does help us make sure that you have a good radius of detection. In terms of the aspects of the real life, in terms of how people are working, since we deployed the system, which we did mid-May, we then started to find the real environment means that there are occasions when people do have to work together. So for these applications, you can cohort the workers. So we still gather the data on how often they are in contact with each other, but they don't receive the alerts between each other, but they do receive alerts between anybody outside of their cohort. Another feature that was added to the system is quite often people are able to put in physical barriers to help protect people from transmission of germs. But those physical barriers can allow radio signals to move between. So these are the instances where you might get false detections. So in this situation, the device can tag on to what we call a safe zone. And in doing that, we switch off all detection because the person is deemed to be in a safe position. At the end of the day, what it's all about is ensuring that we have data. The data, as we believe it with this sort of application, has two significant applications. One is to give data in a manner that allows people to design a safer work environment. So we analyse the data in terms of the frequency and severity of the proximity. We can break it down into different groups of people, and that allows you to then trend and manage essentially if your workplace controls are effective in terms of bringing this amount of contact time to as low as reasonably practical. And then the other side of it is the contact tracing. So from a contact tracing point of view, we can very rapidly determine who has been in contact with other individuals. We can also look at it from a time of day perspective, which again allows an element of looking at work practices and how they can be changed. All of the data is managed under the strict compliance with GDPR, which for instance does mean for the contact tracing, the data is not kept for a period longer than the purpose that it may have. So in a configurable manner, you can choose that period of time, but at the end of the period of time, it will be automatically deleted. And that preserves sensitive info or preserves people's liberty, if you like, of having information that is being kept for no particular purpose. So that brings me to the end of the presentation. In summary, it's a repurposed system, which means it's very much a system that's already proven and known to be reliable in the work environment. It personally alerts the individuals so that they can manage their own social distance behaviour. There's GDPR compliant data records that allows an employer or managers to better manage the social distance behaviour in the workplace, but also to contact trace when needed if there are any events. It's a simple system to implement at a workplace. There is no wiring, there's no networks to be connected to. It's essentially a plug and play type solution, but it's also part of a longer term application potentially for this type of technology. Not only in proximity management, in this case, in detecting or protecting people from the transmission of virus or germs, you can also use it for looking at the proximity to dangerous things such as heavy vehicles. So that brings
Can I just say, that's you, yes, thank you very, very much. Again, a very important aspect of the new normal for people working during a pandemic. If there's a single question I would ask you is, what do you believe as a company was the most important thing to you to allow you to pivot into this new space with a confident and effective solution?
I think it was about market testing the idea adequately to understand that people could see the value in technology for a workplace problem that you can argue can be solved by very manual means, whether it's marshals or signage, but it's the market testing that allowed us to be confident that the market could see the benefits of technology for this application.
Thank you very much. It's a deep and helpful insight that you've offered as a more mature company for today's presentations. Can I thank everybody? I've greatly enjoyed each and every one of your presentations. You've given me something to think about from each of them in my own role in Scotland, and I hope I might be able to continue some conversations going forward. And I do hope that the sharing of this work through this GovTech opportunity will reap great rewards for all of you. So thank you again. And as I've said before, I wish you well in your endeavours.